What is up, everyone? And today I wanted to talk to you about fire charge blade builds against Arch Tempered Namielle. Now, these builds I'm going to show you aren't your run-of-the-mill charge blade builds because Arch Tempered Namielle hits like a truck. So I had to actually make these builds to be able to withstand a lot of Arch Tempered Namielle's attacks. A lot of the rules that would normally apply for regular Namielle don't apply for the Arch Tempered version. So these builds may seem a little odd, but I've been messing around with them all day, and they work very, very well. So first thing we want to go over is that we're using 5-piece Safi, and we're using the Kajar Strongarm King, which is the Kajar Fire Charge Blade. Now, technically, the Safi Charge Blade can get higher elemental, but it's only about a 10 elemental difference. And the Safi Fire Charge Blade has significantly less raw attack, which isn't as important to files, but it's still pretty important to its attack overall. And it has it has 5% base affinity versus 15% on the Kajar weapon. Not to mention the crit element you get on here, which isn't going to be that important since we're going to be doing file damage or Savage X, but I suppose if you wanted, you could definitely do Savage X if you wanted, but this is primarily a file-based build. So, I'll show you guys two builds. The first build here, this I would say is the comfy version of this build, and I use that lightly because this hunt is not very comfy at all. It is excruciating to say the least, but I enjoy a challenge, and I'm sure a lot of you out there enjoy it too. So this build, using all beta pieces of the Safi, using 3 focus for comfy, using weakness exploit because I really didn't have anything to put in here that I felt would like add anything that beneficial. I was thinking about doing agitator and resentment. I was like, those don't really work out that great. They just add raw attack, and the agitator adds just a little bit of affinity. Whereas weakness exploit would be a lot more beneficial to your raw critting. So I would weakness exploit on this build. 3 focus. I normally run 2 focus on charge blades, but because this is like a higher risk fight, I opted to 3. Guard is a really tricky one because guard is really finicky. You can't really guard point into SAED that consistently, sadly. You really can't. It's kind of hit or miss. I have 3 guard on this build. I don't know if it's a difference versus 1 guard or if it's a difference versus no guard, but I highly recommend at least 1 guard so you can, with a charge shield, it becomes 3. If you have 3 guarded charge shield, it becomes 5. Protective polish is there because you don't have that much white sharpness, and this will help you maintain it longer. Otherwise, your weapon will bounce off pretty consistently unless you have your sword charged. Other than that, Rocksteady Mantle, by the way, be really careful with that. Be really careful. Be really careful with Rocksteady. I cannot stress enough how dangerous Rocksteady Mantle is with this build, but it helps only if you play really smart with it. Waterproof Mantle is pretty necessary. Without it, you will be slipping and sliding constantly. Constantly you'll be slipping and sliding. You may also be noticing that Guard Up isn't on this build. And Guard Up would be normally used for its ultimate. You do not want to block this thing's ultimate. Even with Lance, if you block Nami's ultimate, you are at high risk of dying. It is better to just Superman dive or to just face tank it straight up, because if you guard it, it takes like 3 or 4 times and it will just chip you to death. So yeah, this is the comfy version of the build. Now, this version of the build here, this is the slightly less comfy but more DPS because we fit in Coalescence. Now, in the previous build, you notice I had 2 Blight Resist. Here, we have 2 Blight Resist for a reason versus 3. In the last build, you would want to eat for... I also highly recommend eating for Elemental Resist. If you have 20 plus Elemental Resist, you won't get blight, so that'll cover the blight resist for you there. For this build, you want to keep it at 2 blight resists so that your blight will either wear off or you remove it, and your coalescence will proc. It'll give you a pretty nice buff to your elemental and raw attack. Now, because of this, because you don't want to actually ever hit 20 plus elemental resist, you actually want to only eat for elemental resist medium at max. That way you will reduce as much of the elemental attacks from Nami as possible without ever having to worry about being completely immune to blight, aside from when you wear water mantle. I swapped a couple of the beta pieces over to alpha pieces so that I could fit in coalescence a little easier, and max might over weakness exploit in this case, because honestly you're not going to be using that much stamina. Guard pointing isn't really going to be as effective. It's not really that effective. Versus Namielle, she just shreds through your guard like butter, so guard pointing isn't really the greatest. So if you really wanted, you could drop the 1 guard for an extra divine blessing, which would arguably be more useful. But yeah, max might is honestly not terrible. You're not using that much stamina anyway, unless you're just constantly rolling. So that's why I opted to the alpha pieces. Max might is kind of underrated in its nerf state, but it's worth it. So it's essentially the same build, but instead of weakness exploit, we have max might, and we're able to throw in coalescence. These builds were able to do some pretty nasty DPS. If you watched the previous vid, with a team of 4, people who just use these fire charge blades, we were able to get Arch Tempered Nami down in 7.5 minutes, and that was with someone disconnecting at the end of the hunt, like the last minute of the hunt. Someone disconnected. So this build will do a ton of damage to Nami, depending on whether you're using coalescence or not. Depending on whether you're using it or not, it'll do anywhere from 200 to 300 file damage. Also depending on where you hit Namielle, like her head versus her wings, and in her dried state. Surprisingly, regular Namielle in her dried state, your files for fire only usually hit for like 40s, but for Arch Tempered, you actually hit for 80 plus. So she's a little weaker in her dry state, but that might also just be because maybe these charge blades are a little stronger, but they're definitely not twice as strong as base game ice sport charge blades. For reference, by the way, you get a max of Get a max of 920. 920 with a Safi bonus, and with coalescence that'll easily break 1,000. I don't remember the exact number, but I'm pretty sure that breaks 1,000 fire elemental with coalescence, without reaching cap. So that's why I've opted to using a fire charge, but it's honestly become my favorite weapon to use for Namielle. Most weapons I've been struggling with most weapons. If you saw my lance build, I struggled so hard, but charge blade has been really comfy. The solos have been relatively fun compared to other weapons, even with all of the additional hits from every attack from Namielle. But that's it for the build. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions about the build, if you have any suggestions, want to see a different build, want to just talk crap about my build, or me. If you want to crap talk me, by all means, make fun of me in the comments. I encourage it. But until next time, I will see you guys. I'll see you guys on Twitch. Follow me there. I'll be streaming every day. If you're watching this right now, we're about to do a mega long stream, giveaways, all that stuff. Leave likes and comments, and here. And thank you again for all the amazing support on YouTube. I'll be putting out more videos and build stuff and gameplay and even reaction stuff. And hopefully you guys will also enjoy the non-Monster Hunter content. I'm thinking about doing an Assassin's Creed reaction to the trailer because I haven't seen it yet. And so I was like, what if I just recorded and uploaded it to YouTube? Yeah. Also, I think that's it. This is the part where I wait for it to get to 10 minutes because that's supposed to be good. I don't know. That's like a YouTuber thing where you like make 10-minute plus long videos, and it's apparently a good thing. I don't know why it's a good thing yet, but that's why I just rambled for this long. Okay, good night.